Please like this video. I really need your support right now. It's the only way this story can reach more people. Thank you so much for being here with me and for your support. She walked into Elliot and Vine almost 2 hours late, didn't take off her coat, didn't look at the roses, took the champagne flute like it was tap water, and said, "Eye to eye, you're my worst decision. I regret marrying you." I set my wedding band on the table. No lecture, no speech. I pushed my chair back, nodded to the server, and left her with the champagne and the flowers I'd ordered a week ago. If I'd known where that sentence was headed, I would have taken a picture of the room too. I drove home without music. In the kitchen, I set my phone on the counter, took a single photo of the empty dining table, my ring beside my keys, a bottle of cheap beer sweating next to them. No filters. I typed, "Free. Bachelor life." I hit post. Then I slept like someone who'd finally moved a couch off his chest. The phone went off most of the night. When I rolled over at 6, the flood looked unreal. Old friends, gym buddies, people from work I hadn't talked to in months. A few jokes, a few about time, and more than a few from women who apparently had always admired my backbone. I didn't argue with that phrasing. Maybe they'd only just seen it. At 7:15, the front door slammed. Brooke stormed into the bedroom, already holding my phone. "You're embarrassing me." I sat up and reached for it. "We're done, remember? I'm your worst decision." That was private. "You said it in a restaurant. With a wait list." I swung my legs off the bed and stood. "You wanted a stage. You got one. You're being dramatic. I'm being efficient." I held out my hand for my phone. "Send whatever you need to say through email. Short, clear, no nostalgia. I'm not running meetings anymore." She didn't give me the phone. "Take that post down." I laughed once. "No." Her jaw flexed. "You're trying to hurt me." Wrong verb. I'm done being managed. I pointed at the hallway. "Leave the phone on the console when you go." She stared, measuring the new rules, hating that there were rules at all. She tried another angle. "I shouldn't have said that last night. It was calculated." I cut in. "You got what you wanted. Outcome's the same." She watched me, waiting for the wobble that used to show up when she softened. I went to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and called over the water. "Email, Brooke." That's the channel now. When I came out wrapped in a towel, the house was quiet. My phone sat on the console table, face down, a faint smear of foundation across the case like a fingerprint on glass. I made eggs, ate standing, scrolled. Hundreds of hearts, thumbs, thinly coated invitations. For the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. It wasn't about being popular. It was about feeling my own edges. At noon, Marcus texted, "Roof tonight. You lit the bridge, and it looks great from here." I sent back a thumbs up and a time. By late evening, the Chicago air had that late spring bite. Marcus had a beer in each hand and his exactly wrong grin that meant he'd say what other people wrote drafts for. "Happy Freedom Day," he said, tapping my bottle. "Let's not make it a holiday." "Fine. Happy Tuesday." He took a sip and added, "You finally got tired of being volunteered?" "Pretty much." He pulled his phone out. "There's something else. I wasn't sure whether to show you, but I figure you're past the point of pretending." He opened a thread. "She's been messaging me for a while. Friendly at first, then not." I looked at the screen. Brooke's name, a line of blue bubbles. "Can you tell me who's pushing him to act like this? Who is he trying to impress? Who's whispering in his ear? Don't encourage this." Marcus said, "I ignored most of it. She called me yesterday after you posted. Wanted to know if I wrote the caption." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" "Wish I had. I told her to stop texting." She said, and I quote, "Ethan isn't capable of decisions like this on his own." I took the phone, scrolled, handed it back. "So it's not about me. It's about her headline." "Bingo." He leaned on the railing. "What's your plan?" "Distance. No theatrics. I'm not going to explain myself a dozen times. I'll fix my schedule, change my locks, and stop attending events that exist to prove that I'm somebody's accessory." Marcus smirked. "And she'll try to yank you back. I'm counting on it." I looked out over the city. Makes the boundary real when someone pushes it. He clinked my bottle again. "You want me to say I'm sorry it came to this?" "No. I want you to hold me to it when she tries the soft focus." He laughed. "That I can do." We stayed on the roof until the air turned sharp. He told me about a new contract. I told him I'd be sleeping at the house for a week before I found a new place. He shook his head. You sure you want to be there? I'm sure I want to be practical. I held up my phone. Besides, half the city knows. That's leverage. He grinned. Leverage looks good on you. The next morning, I woke to an email from Brooke. 3 lines. Tight. Let's talk tonight. No need to make this public. You're being impulsive. We can still fix the narrative. I replied, no conversations. Email only. Financial logistics only. Narratives are for marketing, not marriages. She didn't reply. At lunchtime, she sent a photo. Our wedding day, cropped to just our hands and the rings. No text. The first attempt at softening. I put my phone face down and went back to work. 2 days later, Harper from accounting sent an invite. Housewarming, Saturday night. Bring a friend. Harper's a straight shooter with new furniture and too many glass bowls. I confirmed. I didn't bring anyone. Harper's place was a mid-rise near the river, full of people trying not to talk about budgets. I stood on her balcony with a paper plate of something that used to be pasta when a voice behind me said, Ethan Cole? From the old firm? I turned. Nina Reyes? I haven't seen you since. Since I quit before I lost my mind, she said, smiling. You still collecting leather notebooks and deadlines? Upgraded to digital deadlines, I shrugged. Less paper guilt. She lifted her cup. I saw your post. Everyone did. Let me pause the story for just a second. If you're still here, please hit the like button. It really helps YouTube recommend this story to more people. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's get back to the story. What I liked wasn't the drama. It was the clarity. That's the fun part. Nobody knows what to do when you don't ask permission. We found a quiet corner by a window that didn't quite close. Nina listened like a dentist listens to a set of teeth, checking structure, not just shine. She asked, what's your boundary now? No joint calendar. No emergency access unless there's an actual emergency. No social events where my job is to prove something for someone else. She nodded. Sounds like oxygen. I took a sip. You had to do your own version of this, right? I did. I left a man who thought compromise meant everything looked like his plan. She glanced at the crowd. People told me I should have stayed quiet, that I overreacted. Funny how quiet is never asked from the person doing the pushing. Quiet is useful if you're guilty, I said dry. She raised an eyebrow. You think you're guilty of anything? Of taking too long to draw a line, I said. That's it. Her smile shifted warmer. That's not guilt. That's growth. We were interrupted by Harper with a tray. I need someone built like a linebacker to carry ice up from the car. She stopped. Oh, Nina, you two know each other. We do, Nina said, amused. Go get your ice, boy. I'm not lifting. Harper handed me keys. Garage level 2. You'll see the cooler. And Ethan, she lowered her voice. Your post? You're not wrong. I know. I was halfway to the elevator when the door to Harper's place opened again like a gust. Brooke stepped in wearing a business suit like a uniform. She spotted me in the hall and raised her chin. So this is your bachelor life? House parties with office gossip. Good evening, Brooke. I set the keys back on the console. We're not doing this here. She walked past me into the living room with that particular speed that announces a performance has begun. People noticed. She planted herself in the center. Here he is, my husband, or whatever he calls himself now, posting like a teenager, living a bachelor fantasy in a city where rent is a joke. Harper moved fast. Brooke, this is not. It's fine, I told Harper, calm. I stepped next to the coffee table and addressed Brooke without raising my voice. You walked into a restaurant on our anniversary and told me I was your worst decision. That's the last event we had together. Everything since is administrative. Brooke looked around, hunting for a sympathetic face. She found Nina watching, steady as a judge. And who are you? Brooke jabbed a finger at her. Were you the one texting him to post that garbage? Are you enjoying his little rebellion? Nina didn't flinch. I'm not part of your marriage. Exactly, Brooke snapped. So stay out of. That's enough. I cut in level. Brooke, this is the point. You don't get to storm rooms and assign roles. You don't get to insult me in public and then insist everything be handled in private so you can rewrite it. That script is broken. The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that happens when one adult finally stops pretending for another. Brooke tried to smile, lost the thread, tried again. You're not this person, Ethan. Somebody's pushing you. This is not who you are. I shrugged. I'm exactly this person. You just didn't like the volume turned up. I gestured toward the door. We're done. Leave the keys on the counter at home. She looked to the crowd again for leverage, found none, and backed away, muttering to herself like a lawyer rejected by a jury. She left as suddenly as she came. Harper whispered, "Do you want me to ask the lobby to?" "No," I told her. "She's done." I took the keys and went to get the ice. When I came back, Nina was by the window again. I set the cooler down. "You handled that without going loud," she said. "Noise is for people trying to be impressive. Am I allowed to say I'm impressed anyway?" "Say whatever you want." We spent the rest of the night talking about small things. Nina's new place, the boat parade, the weird guy in the elevator who talked to his dog like a roommate. When I left, I hugged Harper and told her the cooler was back in my trunk. At 1 a.m., back home, my phone buzzed with a notification on the post. Anonymous profile. No photo. Good you walked away from an unfaithful wife. I stared at it a second too long, breathing through the urge to reply something sharp. Instead, I clicked the profile. 2 posts, both about a consulting firm, Carson and Weller. Brooke's employer. The handle liked several photos from their office parties. The name was forgettable, Tyler C. The avatar was the company logo filtered to black and white. I took a screenshot and sent it to Marcus. He wrote back instantly. "That smell like smoke to you?" "Like accelerant," I replied. In the morning, I messaged the account directly. "If you have something to say it in person." Henderson's coffee at noon. I sat at Henderson's with an Americano and no expectations. At 12:09, an anxious kid in a too-tight tie stepped in, looked around, and spotted me. "Ethan, that's me." He sat, palms shiny. "I'm Tyler. We haven't met. I'm just an assistant at C&W. Please don't say I told you anything." "Then don't tell me anything," I said. "But you came here." He licked his lips, eyes darting. "People talk. The office, it's small when it wants to be. Since Miami, it's been a lot louder." "Miami. Conference," he said, like the word might bite him. "Grant from Commercial was there. He and Brooke. Well, people noticed. After they came back, it was worse. I'm not your friend or her enemy. I am telling you this because I saw your post, and because I think you deserve not to be the only one in the dark." I took a sip. I wasn't in the dark. I just hadn't turned on the lights. He exhaled. "There's a chat. Company channel. Not technically policed. People flirt in there. Normally it's dumb. This wasn't dumb." "Screenshots?" I asked, neutral. He swallowed. "I don't want to lose my job. I'm not asking you to publish anything. You asked to meet. You already crossed the line. If you're going to help, help. If not, finish your coffee and forget we met." He blinked at the bluntness, then nodded. "Give me 3 days." He stood too fast, almost knocked the chair. "I mean, if I can. If there's anything to." "You already know there is," I said. "Or you wouldn't be sweating." He left with a look that said he was going to regret it and do it anyway. Back at my desk, I blocked Brooke's number and forwarded her emails to a folder labeled admin. That afternoon, another soft wave arrived. A text from a new number, clearly her. "I'm sorry about the restaurant. I was exhausted. I handled it badly. Can we please talk?" I typed no. She tried again. "It's me asking for grace. It won't happen again." I put the phone down and went back to the spreadsheet in front of me. At 6, a florist knocked with a box. Inside, a small plant and a card. "Let's reset." B. I gave the plant to my neighbor, Mrs. Patel. She smiled like she'd won a raffle. "Green things don't survive with me," I told her. "But this one might like you." 3 days later, Tyler messaged, "Are you free now?" I said yes. He sent 2 screenshots from the company chat, late-night exchanges between Brooke and Grant. Nothing explicit, but the tone told you all you needed. Inside jokes that had nothing to do with work. A "wish you were here" after hours. Then he sent a photo shot from a phone on a rooftop bar. Brooke's hand on Grant's face. Their mouths too close for professional. The caption from whoever posted it. "Power couple closing deals after dark." My back didn't heat. My heart didn't race. The engine had started days ago. This was just a dashboard light confirming it. I saved the images to a new folder labeled Closure. I stared at the ceiling for a moment, then opened my feed and wrote, "Finally divorced and free." I stood up, walked to the kitchen, poured water. The front door opened like a weather event. Brooke charged in, holding her phone. "You dumped our life on the internet. You dumped it in a restaurant." I answered without turning. I set the water on the counter. You want it quieter? Try being decent. She came closer. You're trying to ruin me at work. I'm not that powerful. But your choices are. They're rumors, she snapped. I picked up my phone and brought up the folder. Rumors usually don't come with timestamps. I held up the chat and photos with the building's logo in the background. She blinked twice too fast. It was one night. A series of nights, I corrected, voice still even. And not the point. The point is your sentence at Elliot and Vine. This just tells me I'm not walking away from something that will suddenly start respecting me. I was lonely, she swung, reaching for sympathy. That's not weather. That's a plan, I said. And compatible with your sentence in the restaurant. You didn't slip. You chose. She tried another card, moving from anger to melt so fast the gears should have ground. I'm scared, Ethan. I made mistakes. We can rebuild. You're good at buildings when the windows face you. Her eyes shone, but I didn't cross the space to mop it up. She had a talent for tears on schedule. I didn't praise the acting, and I didn't punish it either. I just removed the audience. I'm not your emergency contact, I said calm. This is logistics now. Email the details you want to split. After everything? She looked almost surprised. You're just going to sign? Yes. You're colder than I thought. No. I'm exactly as warm as my wife was to our anniversary. I gestured to the door. We're done here. Please don't show up without notice again. How dare you? Email Brooke. She left a minute later, slamming a door that had absorbed worse. The courier knocked the next morning with papers. I read every line. Put my initials where they wanted them, signed where it mattered. No negotiation, no drama. The story had already been told. This was credits. Later that day, Marcus and I met at a corner spot for a sandwich. You did it, he said. I did what I should have done 6 months ago. He took a bite. You're going to keep living in the house. For a week. Then I'm out. Already put in an application for a place off Lake Street. Wide windows. Balcony. He nodded, approving. And when Brooke finds out, she'll find out the same way the rest of the city does, by not seeing me. That weekend, Harper texted, "You okay?" Also, someone at C&W screenshot your post for their internal Slack. People are talking. I wrote back, people always were. Now they have something to point at. Monday morning, someone from IT at Carson and Weller updated the website. Brooke's headshot turned to grayscale with a polite note about interim changes. At noon, an acquaintance from her office messaged me. They took her off the big account. No details, just boundary issues. I didn't screenshot that. I didn't parade it. I read it and closed the app. This wasn't fireworks. It was closure. She wanted a husband who could be shaped to fit a storyline. I wanted air. A week later, the keys to the new apartment sat heavy in my palm. The living room ran long. The windows ran higher. The floors didn't creak. I liked the kitchen most. Simple, clean lines, nothing asking for permission to exist. I moved in stages, a duffel of clothes, a box of tools, the coffee maker that had survived more mornings than it should have. Marcus showed up with a borrowed dolly. We lifted the heavy things without talking much. Harper sent a text. If you need plates, I've got extra. Mrs. Patel asked for my new address so she could forward any wandering packages. On the first night in the new place, I stood on the balcony with a beer and the city's noise. I heard my phone buzz once. It was Nina. Did you get the place? I wrote back, I did. She replied, want company? I looked at the street, at a couple arguing over a trunk that didn't want to close, at the bus sighing at the light, at the river looking like a piece of dark slate. I typed yes. She arrived with water, not wine, and a grocery bag of things she said she always brings to new places. Paper towels, a decent sponge, a lighter for candles you don't own yet. We sat on the floor and ate takeout that tasted better than it was because we were sitting on the floor. She leaned her shoulder against the wall. You look 10 pounds lighter. I returned something that didn't fit. I said. The store was rude about it. She laughed. That's one way to say it. You know what I learned? I added. That the opposite of being controlled isn't being wild. It's being specific. She nodded. Specific looks good on you. People keep saying that. I said. Maybe I should put it on a mug. Please don't become a mug guy. Fair. We talked boundaries again, not like slogans, but like actual decisions. I told her about the 2 posts. She told me about the time she decided she'd never again explain herself to someone who misquoted her on purpose. When she left, We kept it simple. No promises, no calendar invite. Just a genuine, see you soon, and a look that wasn't a test. The next afternoon, Brooke emailed, I think we rushed this. Let's pause before filing becomes final. I answered, already signed. She tried one more. You'll regret burning what we built. I wrote, I didn't burn it. I stepped out of it. It was already on fire. No more messages came that day. The morning after, Harper sent a screenshot of Carson and Weller's team page. Brooke's profile grayed out with a line about temporary leave. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even smile. I just made coffee in a quiet kitchen and stood at a window that faced east. Marcus stopped by with folding chairs. He ran a hand along the balcony rail. You're going to get used to this. I plan to. He nudged me. And Nina? Smart. Steady. Not a project. He laughed. That a dig at your past? That's a summary. He set the chairs down and looked at me for a long second. You know the best part? Tell me. You never raised your voice. You raised the standards. Feels better that way. He clapped my shoulder once. Watch it. You're becoming a quotable man. That's how consultants are born. Don't jinx it. Dusk slipped in. The city hummed. I was no longer taking up space in a story that required me to be smaller than I am. I wasn't shouting my freedom from rooftops. I didn't need to. I'd shown it. A week later, I got an email from HR at my own company confirming the benefits changes. Purely administrative. The kind of thing that would have been used a year ago as a reason to postpone hard conversations. Now it was nothing more than a checkbox. I replied with a thanks. That night, Nina came over with a plant in a heavy pot. I know you gave your last one away, she said, grinning. But this one might survive you. I'll put it near the good light, I said, setting it by the big window. She pulled 2 plates from her tote. You're getting domesticated, I teased. I'm getting fed, she shot back. Huge difference. We ate on the balcony. She asked, if Brooke showed up tomorrow, what would you say? I'd say, you were right. Nina frowned. About what? That I was her worst decision. At least from her angle. I don't take direction well. Nina tilted her head. You take direction fine. Just not from bullies. Then refine it. I don't take direction from people who think they own the script. She tapped the plate with her fork. That's better. After she left, I scrolled my feed one last time for the night. The first post still sat there, simple and unfiltered. Free. Bachelor life. A timestamp that remembered the exact hour I stepped off a stage I didn't audition for. The second one sat above it. Finally divorced and free. Bookends. I turned off the phone and listened to a city that never shuts up, but somehow lets a man hear himself if he picks the right floor. 2 weeks later, a mutual friend dropped a line. Brooke's off the big account. Out of the inner circle, walking the halls like someone who lost the clicker to her own TV. I didn't gloat. Not my work. Not my interest. My work was simple. Show up at my job. Build the new place into something I wanted to come back to, answer texts from friends who don't need explanations, and keep my word to myself. That looked like Saturday morning runs along the lake. It looked like a toolbox actually being used. It looked like me and Nina doing nothing on purpose on a Tuesday. On a Sunday afternoon, I got one last email from Brooke. I hope you're happy. I thought about replying with a lecture about happiness being overrated, about respect being the real currency. I didn't. I stared at the words, saw the old hook hidden there, and deleted the email. That night, I drove across the river with the windows open. I parked in my new spot, the one that doesn't involve backing out of someone else's expectations. In the elevator, a neighbor I hadn't met yet nodded and asked, "You new here?" "Yeah," I said. "Feels like the right address." He laughed. "You sound like a man who got promoted." Feels like I gave myself the job I should have had. On the balcony, I raised a glass, not to victory, not to spite, just to the quiet and the clarity, and to having the spine to leave when leaving is the only grown-up choice. The city didn't applaud, and I didn't need it to. I'd already put down the ring and the roll. I'd already said my line. And for the avoidance of doubt, I sent one last text to Marcus. If I ever think about drifting backward, remind me what she said at the restaurant. He replied instantly, "You're my worst decision." I smiled. Perfect. That's the line. So here's mine, the one I used when Brooke turned the knob one last time a month later without emailing first. I didn't let her in. I looked through the peephole and said, clear and final, "This address doesn't take walk-ins." Then I walked back to my balcony, to the life I rebuilt on my terms. Not louder, just better. And if anybody asks me if it was worth the fire, I tell them the truth. I didn't start the fire. I stopped standing in it.